Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about a very large winter storm, essentially a blizzard, potentially for some, with the heavy snow and strong winds. But on the other side, this thing will be possibly even more impactful with the severe weather and all the heavy rain and flooding and ice. So it's a multifaceted system, multi-faced, as I like to say, many faces to it. And there is a lot more certainty with today's forecast than what we had yesterday. And I'm thankful because that always leads to a lot of confusion, when there's many different scenarios and it's not far out. But at this point, I could pretty much confidently say where the heaviest snow will be falling and where the heaviest rain, where the severe weather, and what the situation is looking like. So this is definitely a video that is going to be clearing up a lot of things if they haven't been already cleared up for your area and whatnot. So yeah, if you're new to this channel, I do want to say hello, hi, welcome. I am a weather hobbyist, weather enthusiast. I like talking about the weather, and we have a community of people that just like commenting about the weather and whatnot. So I implore you to check out the channel, comment down below what you want, and if you do enjoy this content, give it a like and subscribe. Obviously, if you're new, you probably don't know if you like it yet, so I'm just saying it now because at the end I always forget. Let's start talking about this before I get too carried away. So right now I want to take a look at the radar. Normally, I haven't showed you the radar in the past few days because I just like not really showing the radar when there's literally nothing going on, which there has been for the past few days. But now we are finally starting to see this action, and we have the storm essentially already unfolding, if you will, across the United States. So let me play this because it will really give perspective on what the setup is looking like. So look, at 2:15 today, it was noon when you were getting up. Potentially 8 o'clock, there was pretty much nothing. That's a bit of snow in the mountains, but look how this rain just exploded throughout the day, and it's still under the in the phase of exploding. And notice how these showers are light, but they're just scurrying very fast, and that's because we have a very strong convergence of winds with very cold temperatures to the north. I mean, just a few hundred miles to the north in Iowa and Minnesota, we have temperatures are in the single digits, teens, and into the south. Across the south especially, we have areas that are in the 70s and even 80s across the deep south. So but many of these locations are in the 50s and 60s. So still, you get the point. There's a contrasting of air masses, and they are both trying to push in the same direction, so it's squeezing out these showers. These are very fast moving, and today I just went outside and it was just kind of a nasty day. I mean, there are a lot of I was pruning my peach tree. We'll get on a little bit of a tangent here, but I was putting my peach tree, and I was on a ladder and whatnot, and it was so windy. Definitely not the best day to do it, except I wasn't really high off the ground. And yeah, the clouds were zooming past, and it was warm, 50 degrees, but it was still chilly because of how strong the winds were. And you can see now that in the same direction the winds were blowing, we have showers developing. And do note that we already have some snow showers over here on the north side, in cities like Osceola and in southern Iowa. And again, we will see that snowy side starting to explode in the next few hours. And I do want to say that what we do have right now in terms of a full-fledged snowstorm is across Denver, Boulder, the Front Range of the Rockies, and that's basically what we have right now. And let me show you, piece by piece, part by part, what we'll be expecting for the west, the south, the northeast, and kind of southern Canada, and the southeast. I mean, any other region that's going to be impacted by this system. Let me show you the National Weather Service Weather Ready Nation map. Notice we have a lot of advisories with this thing, and it's not even directly with just precip. We have a lot of areas that are under red flag warnings because of the strong winds, dry conditions. It's high risk of fire danger, and that's what these risks it kind of imply. Notice we do obviously have the winter storm warnings, in that little, I guess, broader band. I mean, it's a narrow band of winter storm warnings, but it's a broader band of winter weather advisories where the winter impacts can be extended to. Again, the winter storm warnings implying that's where it will be the worst. Notice we do have some wind advisories and wind warnings. I don't know if there's some wind warnings back in Texas. These are mainly wind advisories, but still very strong winds. I wasn't under a wind advisory today in my area, but we still saw some gusts that easily were 20 to 30 miles per hour into maybe even 35 plus, which are still powerful. And notice flash flood watches or just flood watches across a good portion of the Northeast. So this thing is very powerful and potent, and it will impact you in probably even some ways you might have not expected to if you just looked at the forecast or just looked at a brief glance of the weather. So let's move on with this thing. So again, that was the area of watches and warnings, and just to let you know, if you're in this area of pink, it is in some areas kind of glossed over by the flood or the hydrologic outlooks. So, but basically, if you see your area under the pink color, you're gonna get a lot of snow. If you're in that light blue, you could still get a nasty amount of snow. Just maybe not up to 10 inches where that winter storm warning is. So let me now show you what the National Weather Service thinks will fall in terms of snowfall. So, actually, since I'm already on the severe weather page, clicked on this on accident, let me just show you this, as this is also a very big concern with this system. So, thankfully, today is Wednesday, right? But I said that they might, or I actually was pretty confident that they would issue an enhanced for today, but they didn't. And they just went with a slight. So, I was wrong about that, but I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. Regardless, you could see it is across large cities, and I made that clear yesterday that these large cities are very populated, so it kind of makes it, I guess, not that much better. That it's still across large metros. Again, the biggest risk is, let me go back here. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around, but you can see tornadoes are not the biggest risk. It's definitely a possibility. Any possibility of a tornado is concerning, and you can see it centered across kind of the southern Oklahoma and northern Texas area with that green 2% across southeastern Oklahoma and maybe just north of Dallas. I don't know exactly where Dallas is. I know it's some rain here, but whether or not it's affected by this green, well, it is because it shows it right there. So notice that the wind is definitely the highest threat, and I guess it's tied with hail, so both of these are the highest threats. But again, nothing, I guess, remarkable, but a slight risk is still a slight risk. Now, tomorrow is a much more significant day for severe weather. There may be a moderate issue. I'm not sure. I do think that, as I said yesterday, that this day would be the worst day, and that seems to be true as they have issued an enhanced tornado risk. It's definitely there. 10%, that's when it starts getting a bit unsettling. Thankfully, it's not too high off the charts, but the wind is, and the wind, you can see it's a very, very severe risk of wind, as there could be a lot of lines. And actually, what's remarkable is that the hail is very low, so that's at least a good thing, right? There's still a possibility, just again, very, very low. So yes, that is a forecast. And again, let me just read off the cities that are affected by this. If you live in Memphis, Nashville, Huntsville, Murfreesboro, if you live in any of the cities and you're like, okay, that basically means that you could get some nasty storms tomorrow. Again, this isn't doomsday, right? But your neighbor may get a few cities away, may get hit by a strong gust of winds knocking down a few branches, and you might not. At this point, we don't know if it's gonna, how localized it will be. But if you're in that area, just take some precautions. Be weather aware. Look at the radar. Louisville, Kentucky, Lexington, Birmingham, Shreveport, Little Rock. If I read those names off and you recognize those and you live in them, you have a slight risk of severe weather. So a bit less than these areas, but still at least some nasty gust of wind and some pretty good rainfall. Okay, so that's the severe weather side. I don't want us to focus on too much on one given thing because there's just so many, again, faces to this system. This is the snowfall outlook, and if you've noticed anything, yes, this thing has trended towards the south. Yesterday when I was recording this video, I showed you this one, and this is what they showed. You could see the amounts have definitely increased. This was yesterday's forecast. They were lower, and you can see it was further towards the north. And now we are 24 hours later. I would say this is pretty accurate of what's going to happen. Again, you can see the amounts have stayed pretty consistent. Sorry, not the amounts. The location has stayed pretty consistent for like Kansas and Missouri. A slight southern shift. But where it really shifted south is across portions of Illinois, Indiana. Now you can see even Detroit getting in on potentially 6+ inches of snow. And again, I do want to say that this could still be shifted further towards the north, towards the south. It's kind of a wiggle, I guess, a little bit of wiggle room. I wouldn't say a huge shift. It's not going to probably dip down into Indianapolis, but maybe, 25 miles this way, 25 miles that way, and it may not be a consistent band. There may be pockets a bit further north that get a bit more. It might not be as neat as what this weather service shows. And I do want to say that some models show even more. I do think that there could be some localized amounts of a foot. If you live in this area, there could be localized amounts of a foot. Not saying that there will be widespread amounts, just localized amounts. You will be, I guess, lucky or unlucky if you get that foot, at least statistically looking. So that is that. I showed you the snowfall. I showed you the severe weather. I showed you the radar right now. And now I kind of want to show you a few more things. So let's start talking about the weather models. And let's discuss this for a little bit because if you recall, a few days ago, the GFS was the one that showed a more northern track, and it showed a more strong system with a snowier side to it. While the European showed amounts generally less than 6 inches a few days ago, and the Canadian really showed amounts that were just a few inches. So, I did say that the GFS I do think has the best handle of it, and that did seem to be the case. Obviously, it wasn't completely accurate. Neither was the GFS wasn't completely accurate, just like the European wasn't. But I do think that the GFS had a better handling of this because these amounts that the National Weather Service has issued across the United States right here, the affected areas are way higher than what the European was showing just a few days ago. And that's not just, the European then was, I guess, a little bit less intense. It was a fundamental shift in the structure of the storm. And let me show you. So the GFS model, let's go back to, I guess, Sunday, 6 o'clock in the morning. This is what it showed, and you can see it was further towards the north, right? But the general shape of this system was very similar to what we are seeing currently. You can see right there we have that initial band of rain and snow, and we have that intense band of snow following up after that with extreme winds. Now, the European just a few days ago, let's go back to that same time frame. Well, we can't. We can only go back to Monday, which is I guess midnight into Monday. So this was less further out, and you can see this is what the European showed. This is what it showed, boom, right there. It did show a snow system, but it was a lot less intense, the system, and it was a lot quicker. And the snowfall amounts with this thing were a lot more measly. With a system like this, the European showed, and you can see the amounts were 4 to 5 inches, while the GFS at the same time right here was showing, again, a much more significant event, again, further towards the north. It wasn't completely accurate, but that's much closer to reality than what the European model was showing, and the Canadian was completely out of it, and it still really is. So, yeah, I do, again, this is an example, because I always have people saying that the European is the best model and whatnot, but again, I want to say that, the FV3 GFS has come out over the past few years. There's been many upgrades to the GFS model, which I always argue that I think it's as good as a model as the European. In this case, it was a clear example of why it came true, and why it's, it could be as good as a European, this system. And let's show this. So you may be not really caring about what the models did in the past, and you kind of just want to know about, what's to come, and I do apologize about that, but you might hear my cat meowing, so sorry about that. But you may also just want to know what's coming, and I will show you that right now. But as to why I did that is, well, we have a lot of weather geeks on here. I'm a weather geek, so I get kind of excited about which model does better, which model does worse, and that kind of interests me, and a lot of people as well. So if that doesn't interest you, then I guess that's a bit unfortunate. But let's take a look. So this is the HER model. I would say it's done a pretty good job with the storm thus far, and how it's kind of forecasted it. Notice that I'm gonna go hour by hour. Let me zoom in on here. This is probably very accurate to what the radar will show. This is 7 p.m. February 16th, so really when I'm recording this video, and probably around the time it's going to be uploaded, maybe a bit later. But notice that we have a lot of rain, again, very similar to what the radar is showing, streaming into portions of Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and into even, at this point, Canada. You could see snow just north of cities like Quebec occurring at pretty intense rates right there. Colorado seeing that snowstorm developing. So by 10-11, we have widespread rain, thunderstorms probably across central Illinois. I wouldn't say thunderstorms, but heavy rain with kind of bouts and collapse of thunder. So I guess just, a eventful night to say the least. And do note that there is a bit of snow on the north side. This could be interesting. I do want to say for those areas, for folks that live in this vicinity right here, includes extreme southeastern Wisconsin, into the Quad Cities, depending on how abundant the cold air is and how abundant the precip is and how they overlap. There could be a quick 1 to 3 inches with this before it kind of moves off towards the east and we see that second wave, or it just may dissipate away. So that's something National Weather Service really pointed out, and you see how there's that little stripe of snow. A lot of these locations are pretty much gonna be seeing this band, and then that's it, as this one goes a bit further towards the south. So don't get caught off guard by this, but also don't be surprised if you don't really see any transition and you just see that, again, that large line of rain right? Missouri, St. Louis, and then just nothing for a little bit. And there will be most likely a precipitation lull you could see for Illinois, extreme northern Indiana, I should say central Illinois, maybe southern Michigan, but for many locations across southern Illinois, southern Indiana, once it starts, it's going to continue raining for a while. And this is where that severe weather threat gets going. So this is 8 a.m., 9 a.m., this is tomorrow, so it's a Thursday, right? That severe weather, you can see a lot of these systems, storms right here have a good potential for wind, but the wind, for hail and a tornado threat, but really the wind threat's going to come in the evening with this cold front. Notice, though, that by tomorrow in the morning, we see snow exploding. Really, I should say today at night already exploding across Kansas, Oklahoma, into Texas, the panhandles of both Texas, Oklahoma, and into Kansas City, seeing quite a bit of snow, into the Quad Cities by tomorrow in the morning. And then this is how far out we can go with this weather model, 18 hours. And you can see that at this point, we have already quite a bit of snow that fell across Kansas, again, 9 to potentially even 10 inches in the higher amounts, and anywhere in those light blues, that's kind of a 3 to 4 inch snow system. Again, you can see that little snow swath over there further towards the north. And total accumulated precipitation, again, already good amounts of rain, and we're not done with this system yet. So let me now show you a weather model that is very similar to the HER model, except we have newer data that allows us to go out further out in time. And let me kind of start it basically where I left off with the HER, which was early tomorrow in the morning around hour 23. Right there for the RAP model. And notice, again, we have that heavy rain towards the south and heavy snow developing and really exploding in intensity. Again, this is where we could see some very strong winds, some blizzard conditions, if not a full-fledged blizzard, across portions of Missouri, on Illinois, and Indiana. It's kind of going to be almost pouring snow across these locations. That's kind of how the National Weather Service described it, meaning that the snowfall rates will be very, very heavy, 1 to potentially 2 inches of snow an hour. And this will be rather brief. Any given location, say northern Indiana, look, you start snowing by tomorrow at 12, and you're out of this thing by tomorrow at, Friday, 2 a.m. in the morning. So that's almost a 12-hour event. You've had events that are 24, 30 hours. This is going to be quick, but for the how heavy it's falling and still the general decent length of this, you could see easily a foot of snow across some of those locations. Notice that this model, the RAP, does show this snow a bit further towards the north than what, say, that currently the National Weather Service thinks will occur. Right, so this is a more northern scenario, if you will. But I think it's a decent bet this may occur. Notice cities like Toronto, a little bit of rain, a little bit of ice, but then mainly snow. But don't be surprised if the southern suburbs of Toronto, for example, get a bit more ice. And you get some less snow. Again, assuming a scenario like this were to unfold. Other models don't think so. And we don't really have the guarantee at this point of where it will go. Yesterday, if you recall, I said that this system, if it were to shift, was going to shift to the south, and it did end up shifting, and of course it was to the south. But at this point in time, I don't think we're so far out from it, meaning, we're so far out. We're just a few hours out from the system. I don't think there's going to be big shifts, but at least that the models will pick up on, and we'll just have to watch the radar. Notice the snowfall footprint from this thing is impressive, at least according to this model. It drops a lot of snow in many areas. Detroit, potentially over a foot in some of these areas, well over a foot. I don't think it will be, 17, 18 inches, but 12 inches is definitely a possibility for a decent bit, and anywhere in that pink is kind of like that 6 to 10. Again, this is pretty far to the north with those high amounts. I don't know if it will be that far to the north in reality. As you can see in model like the NAM 12KM, one that has a decent handle over this system, I would say has done a pretty good job. You can see paint cities like Detroit, Toronto seeing decent amounts, right, but cuts it off further north across Illinois and into Iowa. So we'll have to wait and see as this thing, a small shift, rather insignificant for the actual storm track and Mother Nature, could mean a big difference for your house or your driveway. So let me show you a few more of the Canadian. Again, this is the one that's been really trending it further towards the south. Hasn't really done a good job with this system. Still, though, a decent agreement with what other models are showing. So I wouldn't completely disregard the RDPS. The European, again, at this point, I do think it does show a decent possibility of what may occur, as it has kind of adjusted to what the GFS, and the GFS is slightly adjusted to the European. But again, I do think that the GFS did a better job overall. But you could see that it does show 6-7 inch amounts. Still, I think on a lighter side, guys. I really doubt that, Detroit will be picking up just 5-4 inches if they get under even a few hours of that heavy snow. And the remainder is more of a lighter event. I think that there could be at least 8 to 12 inches there. if the National Weather Service were to assume the European was a more correct model, they would not have such high amounts put up for some of these areas. Many of these you're approaching close to a foot in that slightly pink color, while the European, in extreme amounts show 7, and it is a 10-to-1 ratio, but a lot of this heavy wet snow will be falling at even lower ratios than 10-to-1. So this is a good estimate of what the European thinks, and you can see that the GFS does show quite a bit higher amounts, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio. You could see definitely something more comparable to what the National Weather Service is currently showing. So I do think that, again, that's why not only did the GFS have earlier trends of what the system did, but also, I mean, the National Weather Service is basing more of their forecasts off the GFS rather than the European itself. So that is that. I did show you where, again, I do think the heaviest snow will fall. Let me just go back here and take a look at this and zoom in on this. So I did the opposite right there. If you see your city here, if you see your location, find it, right? So Kansas City, the National Weather Service puts you right on the cusp of a heavier event versus a lighter event. It's going to be a tough call. St. Joseph, Missouri, I mean, you're looking at less than an inch. And then just south of Kansas City, I don't know what cities lie just south of Kansas City. I know there are, but I just don't know because of my ignorance, if you will. But you're seeing a much significant event, much more significant, right? I mean, you can see that in northern Indiana, just southwest of Chicago, you're seeing up to a foot. Maybe, and then Chicago itself, quite a bit less. Again, according to the National Weather Service, which I do think has a very good, decent forecast as of now. You can see Wichita is 8 inches. If this shifts a bit towards the north, towards the south, it could be a lot less. It's a lot of potential for frustration, because some people base the whole system off their one location. They think, my location was forecasted to see 5 inches. We saw 2 inches. This system was complete failure. And in reality, your location is the only place that's based off how well this is. If your location underperforms, but every other location pretty much did that as forecasted, it doesn't really matter, and that's the reality. Notice that 6 to 8 inches for Kansas City, with the most recent forecasts. This was at 3:35 a.m., so I'm assuming this is slightly further towards the north than what they currently think, because based off this thing that was updated an hour ago, shows a bit less of those amounts. So I think those amounts are a bit high for the Kansas City area. They've shifted a bit further towards the south. I'm going to go over a few other metropolitan areas. Let's just go over central Missouri. I clicked on the same one. I wanted to see if I could click on St. Louis. Again, you're in a winter weather advisory. I told you guys that, a southern shift all the way into St. Louis wasn't likely. I knew a southern shift was possible. As far south as St. Louis, seeing, the kind of the bullseye is almost very unlikely, and it didn't really end up happening. You can see that the bullseye is just north, actually quite a bit north. And you can see that Chicago, for example, right, northern Illinois, you were initially yesterday going to see quite a bit of snow. But, you could still see a decent bit. And again, these amounts may be a bit varied, especially with that overnight burst of snow. But these heaviest amounts up across Kankakee, Pontiac. And notice that they don't have specific amounts. They have like 8+, because this thing could overperform pretty easily if it's given the right ingredients. Notice Detroit yesterday, the heaviest snow was just north of your location, right? And now you have the heaviest amounts really right at your footstep, right, their doorstep. And I do think that if it does end up taking a track like this, these amounts will be higher. I think that there could be amounts anywhere from 6 to 10, not 7. I think 7's a pretty small amount to top things out at, if that makes sense. And then, of course, in terms of the precipitation, the rain, if you live further across the south, I don't want to just completely not show you guys. So again, the precip forecast has changed really just slightly. Again, I would say that the bullseye of heaviest rain has shifted towards the south a bit, and actually is a bit more expanded. That little red stripe, if you can see, which is almost 3 to 4 inches. But anywhere in that orange, that light orange, that kind of light red, or whatever you want to say, that goes from Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Ohio, and into southern Canada. Again, I don't cut this off. The National Weather Service does, so I can't really show you how much you see in Toronto off this map. But, that's anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain or snow, just liquid. So that's a lot. And I do want to say that a lot of these areas have seen already a lot of precip. So that could cause some flooding. Notice across Oklahoma, Kansas, with that snow and rain, it's a bit less, still a decent amount. And anywhere where the storms occur, you can see isolated amounts of several inches. These stripes, it will probably be like a stripe. instead of just one broad area of precipitation like we have further towards the north. And you can see the northeast, again, as I mentioned, mainly a rain event, and that's been consistent, and you can see that it has stayed consistent, and the rain isn't as strong, but it's still a good, half an inch to maybe an inch across some areas, especially as you get towards inland portions. And, it's the extreme southeast, really not picking up much out of the system. This thing will kind of peter out by the time it hits, southeastern Georgia, South Carolina, not dropping really any rainfall of any significance there. So that is basically it. Again, I went over the snowfall forecast. It did shift slightly towards the south compared to yesterday. So again, that is definitely something that is very important to note. And again, in terms of what model has the best handle, I do think that that's kind of a bad way to, because I'm trying to think of which model I could show you at the end just to show you which one's the most comparable in terms of, or I guess comparable to what may happen in my opinion. It's a tough, because usually just you have to make your opinion up from several models, but I would say maybe, I mean, if you're just, if you're a weather enthusiast, a weather hobbyist, and you like checking the weather models and how they change, sorry about that, I would say the HER model, because even if it's inaccurate, 6 hours or 2 hours later, it updates new information and it adjusts itself right away. So I would say this is a pretty good one. And you can see it only goes out to 18 hours, but every few hours, every 6 hours, it goes out a lot further, 51 hours. So that could be a very accurate one. And you can see that I think it does a good job with that rain, right? You will be seeing heavy rain across Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri. Even if you're not seeing it now, within a few hours you will. And then you can see this thing just exploding right there with very, very heavy snowfall. And the winds will be extreme. I want to emphasize that. You can't really tell that based off this map. I mean, you can, but it doesn't catch the eye as much as like the blue snow or the red from the thunderstorms. But the wind will be a big factor, and there could be some isolated, if not scattered, blizzard conditions across some of these areas. So stay tuned to your local National Weather Service. This is probably the last video I will be making about this storm. But again, that is, I might make a video tomorrow. And yeah, that's basically it for today. I'll show you Denver, because I haven't showed you this, but you can see right there, 4 to 6, 6 to 8 Boulder. Pretty good amounts, right, guys? Again, not much further west or east, but still a decent system. So, yep, that's basically all I have for you today, folks. And I hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something new. Hopefully you're relatively prepared. And again, I'm just clicking on random areas to show you. Actually, this is exactly what I wanted to show you. That's, don't be surprised if you live, say, in South Bend, and you may see a bit more, a bit less, because look at that gradient, right? That is pretty tight. And in reality, Benton Harbor won't see 4 to 8. It will see somewhere between 4 through 8. So if it sees 8, you could assume a lot of these locations further south won't see that much, because that means a northern trend has occurred, or a southern trend. If anything, I would say maybe more slightly towards the south than it is currently. But again, at this point, it's maybe just a little bit of a wiggle, not necessarily a big shift. And yeah, so you can see that there's still some uncertainty for some of these areas. For now, that is basically it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.